Hi, Chef Carol, NYC. Today I will be making low-carb stuffed bell peppers. This is my recipe, so you will find the ingredients in the description. As you know, many of the step-by-step recipes are from the keto-friendly South Beach diet. But on occasion, I will have my own recipes or recipes from other keto-friendly sites that I found to be interesting. In those cases, I will always refer you to the site and the author of that recipe because it is their recipe and I'm going to try to drive the traffic to them. If it's your first time visiting with me, welcome. I invite you to subscribe, and if you like what you see, please give me a thumbs up. Very important. So let's get started. I used bell peppers, avocado oil, onion, garlic, ground chicken, dried parsley, a seasoning blend, Italian seasoning, rice cauliflower, Rotel tomatoes, marinara sauce, and mozzarella cheese. First, I'm going to rice the cauliflower using a food processor. You can also use a box shredder. Start by cutting the cauliflower into smaller pieces. Do not use water. Once you have the cauliflower cut and placed in the food processor, you're going to pulse a few times just to get the rice consistency. Now that I have riced the cauliflower, I will remove it from the food processor. I will take the rice cauliflower, place it into a bowl, and I'll just set it aside until it's time to use it in the recipe. Mincing garlic. This is a pretty important skill to have. Now, we all know you can go and buy garlic already minced in the supermarket, but suppose you can't get there. It's good to know how to do it. So you want to make sure you start with a sharp chef knife, a good cutting board. You remove those hard little ends from the back of the garlic, and you keep your garlic pieces close together. Now, while you're mincing, make sure to keep your fingers out of the way. It's a good idea to put your hand that's not holding the knife actually on the top of the knife, and just use a rocking motion to keep blending the garlic to whatever size is appropriate for the recipe. One of the reasons that we do mince garlic finely is to keep from biting into a big piece of garlic. Could spoil the whole dish for you. I'm using 2 organic green bell peppers. So I've washed and dried them. And using a sharp chef knife, I'm going to very carefully remove the tops from the 2 peppers. Now I'm going to take a sharp fillet knife, or you can use a paring knife, and very carefully remove the seed package from each of the peppers. Easy enough. Now I'm going to take that same knife and really very carefully remove the membranes. And I say carefully because, number one, your hand is underneath the pepper and you don't want to puncture the bottom of the pepper because you might cut your hand. Additionally, we're going to be filling these peppers, and if there's a puncture in it, some of the ingredients might slip through. So let's rinse that pepper out, remove the remaining seeds, and then we'll move on to the next step. So we have the two tops. I'm going to just take 1/2 of a half and reserve the rest for something else later on. I'm going to also now prepare a pot of salted water. Now the pot has to be big enough for the two peppers to be submerged. And those peppers will be put on the stove, brought to a boil for about 5 minutes until they soften a bit. Once they have completed the 5-minute cycle, I am going to remove them, place them on paper towels, allowing them to drain. Next step is grating the cheese with a box shredder. For this recipe, I need 4 ounces of shredded cheese. I like to use wax paper because it's easier than a bowl. Now, there is nothing wrong with using shredded cheese that has already been prepared in the store, but you should know that in order for shredded cheese to stay separated, that it is coated with a type of a wax substance to keep it from sticking to each other. So if you want a fresh taste of cheese, then you're going to go with grating it yourself. It only takes a few minutes. So I'm grating this cheese, and once it's finished, I'm just going to set it aside until it's ready to be placed in the recipe. Rough chop an onion. This will be the easiest dicing of an onion. Basically, we're cutting off what I need. I'm going to make a couple of horizontal cuts, a couple of vertical cuts, and the important thing is to keep your fingers out of the way. And then just across the top, I'm just going to cut it. Size doesn't matter because it's going in a blender. In the culinary world, mise en place means putting in place. For the layman, basically this ensures that you have everything you need in order to complete this dish with very little chance of error. So you will get your ingredients, you'll measure them out. If you don't have these tiny little dishes, you can just use wax paper. And you measure it out. Make sure that if you need to substitute something because you discover you don't have it, that you now have the time in order to do that. You can refer to the recipe to see the exact ingredients. The Nutri-Bullet blender is a wonderful small tabletop for making sauces or smoothies very quickly. What's going to happen in this recipe is I'm going to put in my onions. I'm adding my garlic. I'm now adding my seasoning salt and the Italian seasoning and the parsley. That is my Rotel. And remember that green pepper that we set aside? There it is. So I'm just going to screw this on and this will be ready in 2.5 seconds. Push down, pulse, pulse, and the sauce is ready to go. Preparing the pepper stuffing. So I've done everything to make sure this dish turns out perfect. I am now preparing an oven pan. I like to use parchment rather than aluminum foil, but sometimes I have to use foil, especially for the top of this dish. So here are my ingredients. I'm moving over to the stove now. I have my non-stick pan. So one hint is never preheat a non-stick pan with nothing in it. So at this point, the pan has preheated. The oil is hot. I've placed the chicken into the pan and let it brown on one side. Now I'm going to just start breaking up the chicken to make sure that it's thoroughly cooked inside and that the pieces are broken into small pieces so that it will fit nicely into the burst. Here's the sauce that was made in the Nutri-Blender. In case you have finicky people who don't like onions and certain things, you just blend it into the sauce. I'm now adding the marinara and the rice cauliflower. Stir it together until it's combined. Give it a little taste test to see if it needs anything else. I've now removed the pan to my counter. I'm using an ice cream scooper to fill the peppers. It seemed very efficient. I've put them in the prepared pan. I'm going to cover them with aluminum foil and bake at 375 for 20 minutes. At the end of the cooking time, I'm going to place the shredded cheese on top of the peppers, return them back to the oven, broil for 5 minutes, and bon appetit. Thank you so much for cooking with me today. And if you enjoyed this video, please check out my other tutorials. See you soon.